Welcome everybody, I'm Brian Roma, the shopkeeper here at Minding the Key Store, the YouTube channel that talks all things PKI. And we're going to continue in our series with another live session where we talk about things that happen, horror stories, cautionary tales that happen in public key infrastructure. But before we dive into that, we've got obviously a live session going. We've got some folks that are joining in. I'd love to hear in the chat, where you're dialing in from. Are you in the U.S.? Are you overseas, across the pond in the United Kingdom? Or are you on the other side of the globe altogether and it's in the middle of the night in Australia or New Zealand? Where is it that you're watching this particular stream from? I'd love to hear. So comment in the chat and let's get going. So in our last session, we talked about root certificate, root CA certificate revocation lists, and how it was important to get the crow out there to revoke those, to be able to give certificate status on a regular basis. I'm going to bring the music down as I gather my thoughts, a little scattered right now. Try to focus in, be present, be with all of you. It's been a hot minute and a little bit of a crazy morning, so I'm going to take a breath, focus, and talk to each of you. So we talked about certificate revocation lists last week and how it was important to make sure that not only do we publish them and put them somewhere where the infrastructure can see where they are, but we need to set our certificate services so that they see and check to make sure that a certificate is still valid or has been revoked. Today we're going to talk about if you're building new certificate authorities and you're getting ready to add them, and say you have a production Active Directory domain, say you have a production environment with existing certificate authorities, maybe you're doing a rollover where you've got an old Windows Server 2008 or 2012 certificate authority environment, and you're spinning up a brand new chain, a brand new root certificate authority and subordinate or issuing CAs underneath that, and you want to be able to build that stuff out without making changes to your production environment. If you're not careful and you have an existing production CA environment and a production Active Directory environment and you just spin up a new certificate authority, you could release templates to your Active Directory environment and potentially enroll for systems such as domain controllers without anybody really knowing about it. Just by installing the service and, getting it set up in AD, you could deploy templates. And, the last thing we want to hear is, those of us that are responsible for PKI, we don't want to hear from our Active Directory team, hey, why does my domain controller now have these additional certificate templates? Why do we pick up these new certs? Maybe we don't want to do that. So I'm going to jump over, do just a bit of a desktop share. Let me get the, let's do this. So there is a document, I'll put this in the show notes. There's a document that Microsoft has that talks through the steps that you would take when deploying certificate authority infrastructure. And this talks about Windows Server 2016, but this is going to be the same if you build a 2019, certainly going to be the same if it's 2022, 2008, this is the same. And the CA policy.inf file, if you're not familiar with it, is something that automatically gets installed when certificate services are installed and the service is initialized. But you can pre-configure your root certificate authority by putting some files in a CA policy.inf file. And like it says here, it needs to go in the system root folder. Again, I can post this. I'll post this in the show notes so you can take a look at it. So you can put some constraints around, and there's a lot of options that are in here around the OID. If you don't know what that is, there's other blog posts and articles that talk about that, but the number of tiers, you can actually restrict how deep your PKI infrastructure is. You could say we're only going to be a 2-tier. I'm not going to allow a 3rd-tier certificate authority and put it in the CA policy.inf file. But what I wanted to focus on today was not on every single option, but I wanted to pull up an option that you can select or type into the CA policy.inf file, which is this load default templates equals 0. And if you create a CA policy.inf file, follow some of the other, there's some other pieces in here that I'm not going to go over today necessarily, but if you build out a CA policy.inf and include that default templates equals 0 in that and get it in the system root folder, let me go back up. So copy it into the system root folder before you install certificate services. So you want to do this before you deploy and install CA services. If you do that ahead of time, then when Active Directory certificate services deploys and initializes, it will not take the default templates that come with a Windows Server 2016 CA or 2019 or 2022 and blast it out to your Active Directory environment and potentially affect things like your domain controller templates. So you can build, now this is a certificate server, certificate authority server at a time. You need to do this on every CA that you spin up. But if you take this step and pre-configure certificate services before you install the role, you can actually get CA services up and running and not impact anything that's in production. And then when you want to publish something from a given certificate authority, you can right-click and issue a certificate based on the templates that are available in AD and be very strategic in the templates and the certificates that you want to release to a given environment. So the horror story is if you're not careful, you can make a huge change to your production environment and release a certificate template, and that could be, depending on the environment that you're in, that could be a resume generating event. So I'm going to cut back over to me real quick, and let's take a look at the chat here and see if anybody has any questions. We're really glad to have you here today. And it's just one of those things that if you're not used to it, like you could just go through and click next, next, next and install the role and have the rights to do it and not think anything about these are all being pushed out into production and they're available for consumption. And definitely if you're not paying attention to the rights that you have on the templates that are being pushed out there, if you have some crazy configuration where you have domain users and enterprise admins or something like that, now you've got people, you're putting things out into production and you could have people requesting certificates that are not ready for prime time. So you definitely want to pay attention to the permissions that you have on those given templates when you do release them. So if you have any questions, I see there's a couple of people that are kind of lurking in the background here, and we're really glad to have you here. If you're new, I'd love to hear you comment on maybe some gotchas that you've experienced in your given environment. Have you gone through a situation like this? That is, you've deployed certificate services, you didn't set up the CA policy.inf file and it just shotgunned out all of those templates into production and you're like, where did these come from? I'd love to hear in the comments below if that's something that you've experienced. And let's take a look here. So while we're waiting for a couple of folks to comment in, I want to talk about some changes that we're going to be bringing to PKI Solutions, which is the organization that presents this particular channel and just wants to give back to the community. We love connecting with and supporting public key infrastructure professionals such as yourself, but there are some services that we make available that are fee-driven. This is something that what we put here on the channel is free. It will always be free. We want to make resources available to strengthen your foundation in public key infrastructure, in Active Directory certificate services, in hardware security modules, certificate management systems, talking about Venafi or Key Factor or something like that. This will be content that will always be free, but PKI Solutions is going to be overhauling their catalog. We're in the middle of doing that right now. One of the things that we're adding to our training subscription is something that's called the PKI Tribe, and that's a community that's going to be a group call that's available twice a month for an hour, where you have the opportunity to get on a live call, an interactive call. This is very one way, what we do here on the YouTube channel. You can comment, and if I see your comment in time, I'll try to chime back in, and it's interactive, but it's not, directly talking to each other. The PKI Tribe is a live call where you have a chance to ask not just myself, but the folks at PKI Solutions, Mark or Jake Granlenard, or possibly we'll have to see. We might even be able to coax Vadams into joining and answering some questions about what he's doing in the PowerShell space. And if there's a bunch of people that show up, it's also an opportunity to listen to your peers and hear what they're facing. And the goal is to provide support for what you're going through in the training catalog, but also to hear what kinds of struggles and challenges and troubleshooting, you might be going through, with your peers. So right now, I think we've got something like 25 people that might be showing up for our first call, which I'm thrilled to have. So we might not be able to get to every single person, but you'd be amazed to hear the kind of detail and similar challenges that your industry peers at different companies and different environments, they're facing the same exact thing. So once again, it's called the PKI Tribe, and it's going to be available. It's completely apart. If you are already a PKI Solutions training subscriber, this comes with the catalog and all of the other courses that we are putting together. So we're really thrilled to talk about that. And share that. Not intended to be a shill, just something else. If you like the level of connection that we're having here, it's something that we're also providing, but that's on the fee side of things. So we will continue to have live sessions like this. We're going to have guests. So next week, we have a recorded session with some industry issues with Mark Cooper, and he's going to talk about some of the gotchas that he's seen. I'm starting with very low-hanging fruit, and we're going to end with a cherry on top session with Mark, where he talks through, like, you really shouldn't do, and he's going to pull out all the stops. So you certainly don't want to miss that. Well, we haven't had any major questions or challenges. People are just soaking in the content and interacting, and I love all of that. Here, let me jump back over real quick. I don't see any big questions. So instead of belaboring the stream, I just want to thank all of you for joining in and supporting the channel. We in a month, we've gone, to well over 100, and we're continuing to grow, and we love all of that. We have some more special sessions and topics that are coming up in November and December. We're going to do a session in the near future that centers around the PowerShell PKI modules. So we're going to get into that, and we're certainly going to get back to our lab series. So if you're really enjoying that, we would love to hear some more from you about specific topics that you would like to dig in more as you build out an Active Directory Certificate Services lab. So that's a whole lot of ramble on my part. It took me a minute to settle in, but I thank you for your patience and for your time. So don't forget, set those load default templates to 0 in your capolicy.inf file so that you don't end up with a phone call or an email or an instant message from your boss saying, hey, what happened? You're deploying to production. What did you do? What did you do? Thank you so much. As always, I'm Brian Roma, and I'm your shopkeeper here at Minding the Key Store, and we will see you next time.